If there's one thing that can be certain about the average modern consumer, is that we're never fully satisfied. And this cannot be any truer than for the fans of the horror genre in general, and Silent Hill in particular. It is becoming somewhat of a tradition for me to play and review a new entry in the Silent Hill franchise every autumn, and not gonna lie, it does feel good. In its heyday, Silent Hill was one of the most popular horror franchises, but over the years lost its appeal, became stagnant and predictable, which led to Konami pulling the plug, with the last proper entries being the HD remaster of 2 and 3, as well as a standalone title, Silent Hill Downpour. I will pretend that the Book of Memories isn't part of this conversation. A lot can be said about Konami and this drastic shift from developing fully fledged games to printing money on the domestic market via countless gacha machines, but that's a topic for another video. The point is, Silent Hill has been absent for over 10 years and now slowly but surely is making a comeback. My only concern is how long it will all last and when, not if, the series will run out of steam. But why the negatives from the beginning? Let's talk about the latest entry in the franchise, Silent Hill F. All in all, I liked it. It is a very well made, technically impressive game that actually stands out from lots of other titles made on the Unreal Engine 5. It retains the main grim grey palette of the recent Silent Hill 2 remake, while adding its own unique art style with contrasting colors, making it one of the best looking games that I've played recently. The Ebisugaoka town and the surrounding mountain shrines were carefully crafted with immaculate attention to detail, recreating the aesthetic of the 1960s Japan. I would honestly love to just walk around and explore this place without freaky puppets and goo monsters trying to cut my head off every 5 minutes. There is something about the Japanese horrors, or more specifically horrors set in Japan, that just makes the hair on the back of my neck turn grey. So, walking through the streets of rural Japan knowing that there is something lurking in the shadows was really refreshing. All of this is accompanied by excellent sound design and music made by the legendary Akira Yamaoka, who seems to have signed a lifelong contract to work on Silent Hill games. Or maybe he's just been locked up in Konami's basement ever since the original Team Silent ceased to exist. I highly recommend playing F in headphones to get the full terror experience. The story is decent and follows the great Silent Hill tradition of not giving too much away and keeping us, the player, guessing what is going on through the eyes of the protagonist. This time we're told the story of Shimizu Hinako, a high school student with problems at home, forever stuck in the shadow of her perfect elder sister Junko, whom she loves and respects, but cannot shake the feeling that her parents are demanding that she was just like her. Hinako finds salvation in her childhood friend Shu and a couple of other girls from school, but their relationship also comes with its own set of issues. Customary for the Silent Hill games, Silent Hill F touches many topics from domestic abuse and high school bullying to looking for your place in life and the freedom of choice. It's a game where I spent quite some time reading through Hinako's notebook as the story progressed, giving more and more information about her psyche and the way she truly felt about everyone around. Instead of the traditional otherworld, Hinako gets transported to the Dark Shrine, where she meets a mysterious man whom she calls Fox Mask. So basically the game shifts between the town of Ebisugaoka covered in fog and the Dark Shrine, hinting that Hinako has two sides that act completely differently from one another, seemingly wanting two different things, showing her internal struggle. And of course, in great Silent Hill tradition, the endings are left for us to decipher. Was it all a fever dream caused by the overdose of painkillers, or maybe Hinako indeed got stuck in an ancient battle between two godly deities? I even thought that she was dead at some point, and some of the characters and other items like message boards hint at this throughout the game, but as usual, it's all for us to decide. I really liked how the story unfolded, how it made me constantly think about what was real and what wasn't, how the previously visited areas changed as the game progressed, how the dots connected in the end, and the choices that Hinako made.
Yoink.
The two worlds clearly show us her inner struggle and how she cannot make up her mind on what she wants to be. A strong and independent woman who carves her own path and goes against the norm, or is she happy just being a little girl who can always rely on a strong figure to guide her in life? Silent Hill F really encourages multiple playthroughs as we get to know what actually happened only after the final credits roll. I'm not going to spoil anything, but the four main endings really got me thinking what the best outcome was for Hinako and whether or not she indeed was the high school girl that we see throughout the game. Thankfully, the developers have shown all of the requirements for each ending after you complete the game for the first time. It's probably my fear of Japan's urban legends and tales about ancient evil that kept me on the edge of my seat almost until 3/4 of the game were over. If it were any other setting, I would have been annoyed way earlier. And you know it's a bad sign when a horror game starts to annoy you. But let me explain. Silent Hill F is built entirely around melee combat, which makes perfect sense for a high school student protagonist. But unlike its predecessors, Silent Hill F introduces us to a combat system reminiscent of the Souls genre, where you need to lock on a target and waltz around it, waiting for the perfect opportunity to counter. And I can sort of see this working in a Silent Hill environment, provided that the movement is fluid and navigating doesn't feel stiff, like we're trying to push a jammed trolley through a crowded supermarket. Surprisingly enough, the system works well in one-to-one situations, provided that it's not one of the few boss fights scattered throughout the game. However, when the situation calls for dealing with multiple enemies at the same time, you're in for a rough ride. The stamina will drain in a second, the frantic movement of most of the enemies and their random attack patterns can easily reduce your health to 0 in a matter of moments. And the number of enemies only increases as you progress through the game, which is why at one point I gave up and set the combat difficulty to story, as fighting through countless enemies didn't really feel like my cup of tea. And I know very well that on paper it is possible to run away from most fights, however the further I went, the more difficult it became. Silent Hill F is a very contradictory game, in the sense that it can be as great and atmospheric in its highs, as terrible and tedious during its lows. The tense and eerie atmosphere of a deserted Japanese town and the nearby shrines in the mountains is contrasted by a combat system that resembles something closer to a Souls game prototype than the finished product intended to be used in a horror setting. What I cannot take away from Konami and Neobards Entertainment, the team behind Silent Hill F, is that they did their best to freshen things up and bring Silent Hill back to its Asian roots, not only in terms of the development team but also the setting. From what I've gathered, Konami felt that the franchise got too American over the years, which led to a decrease in quality and the subsequent death of the series. So, they decided to move the entire game as far as they could from previous titles, basically only leaving the name and other signature elements. And while I'm not one of those people who violently hit the keyboard writing something like, this is not Silent Hill, how can you have Silent Hill not in Silent Hill, shit, Souls-like game, I do understand the frustration of some of the fans who were eagerly waiting for their favorite series to make a comeback. But here's the thing, you cannot live in 2003 till the rest of your days. There comes a time when your favorite thing has to either change and offer something new for a new audience, or die out, watching the last loyal fans walk away. Being stuck in one place and trying to scrape from the bottom of the barrel was one of the reasons Silent Hill had to take a 10+ year hiatus. Sure, I get that Silent Hill F could literally be called anything else and nothing would change. I even thought that calling it something like Siren 3 or Fatal Frame F would make more sense. Even Kuon 2 if you're weird and spicy. And something tells me that Konami were aware of the possible negative reaction from some of the fans when they decided to finally abandon the small coal mining town in Maine, New England.
Silent Hill.
And even with my nitpicks surrounding the combat and the overall movement, I still think that Silent Hill F is a great horror game and does all the things that you would expect from a Silent Hill title. The atmosphere, the sound design, the music, the monsters, the puzzles, and the exploration are done incredibly well. However, Silent Hill F solves nothing. Sure, it does offer something new in a dormant, stale franchise and tries to move away from the series' roots. However, the biggest issue with the Silent Hill franchise has been right in front of us all these years. It's literally in the title. From the very beginning, the games were anchored to one place, a small foggy town where wild supernatural shit happens, with another poor soul being stuck in the middle of it. No matter what you do, there is no running away from where it all began. Unlike the Resident Evil franchise, which was also tied to a specific location during its first trilogy, Silent Hill is a series bound for stagnation and inevitable death, because you cannot continue making up more and more stories about a broken person who got lost in life. In this sense, Silent Hill F is indeed a breath of fresh air that takes the action away from the cursed town. However, the problems begin when we start asking questions. Why is the game called Silent Hill not set in Silent Hill? Where is the connection between a forgotten village in the Japanese mountains and a small town in America? And why is the mysterious fog that spawns grotesque creatures now spreading across continents? At times, I could not shake the feeling that Silent Hill F was doing its damnedest to be Silent Hill the Greatest Hits, in the sense that it was more like a checklist of things you'd expect from a Silent Hill game. A foggy town with weird shit going on and a clueless bastard stuck in the middle of it. A deep commentary on multiple social topics, two different worlds seemingly being two sides of the same coin that translate to the mindset of the protagonist. Hell, even some of the enemies clearly drew inspiration from previous games. I mean, don't tell me that these puppets aren't supposed to be the nurses from Silent Hill 2. When you put the name of a place in the title and spend over 10 years telling your audience stories from this place, it can become very difficult to get them on board with a complete overhaul and a new direction. My only hope is that the folks at Konami actually know what they're doing and have a long-term plan for this new chapter in the Silent Hill franchise.